I'm just going to kick off the plumbing side of things now. So I've already done the brackets for the water tank. So now I've fitted up the various fittings that I need for the water tanks and ready to put those into the van permanently. So this is going to be our inlet and outlet. I'm going to use joint purpose there, and I'll join a pipe up inside the van somewhere that goes to a fill line. So it's going to be a power fill only. Also got a few bits of foam here that I'm going to use just to protect and hold them firmly in place. This stuff's really hard and also very expensive, but anyway, $27 a metre or something stupid. Okay, so one tank's in now, and I'm just running the breather line. Get that up there, we'll tuck that in behind the other tank as that goes in. I didn't video me installing the tank itself because there was lots of swearing involved. Yeah, I've made this very hard for myself. Using PEX hose and these brass fittings under here, slightly bigger than the usual caravan type stuff. So this is just from Bunnings. It's residential stuff, brass fittings, a little bit more robust for underneath. And they just push in like that. It's relatively easy. It's going to be alright there. So now, pipe out of there up through the floor, and that's that. Let's put a bit of paint around that cut edge, just using some cold gal paint, mopping it on with a cotton bud. I find if you use a paintbrush, it kind of doesn't go on very well. Paintbrushes tend to want to put light coats on, whereas if you just sort of dollop it on with a cotton bud, sure you'll get a few cotton fibres in there, but at least you get a nice coating all over it. After staring at the framework for my lounge for an extended length of time, I decided to make a few modifications to various bits and pieces. But in order to start finalising the shape, design and the length of all the bits of aluminium, it really was necessary to start getting a solid reference point down. So I decided to get a few of the floorboards down, at least through the front section of the van, so I've got somewhere level to work off and work out where my bolting points are. I'm not doing the whole wooden subfloor thing. I think it's just a unnecessary waste of payload, basically. Using click-together laminate flooring. The polystyrene between the ribs is just to give a bit of extra support. Obviously polystyrene is very soft, but you know, when you span a board across there, these are 6.5mm hybrid vinyl boards. Once that spans across that, there's practically no force that goes down onto the polystyrene, so it just works as a bit of extra support. Did this in the last van. Bit of an experiment on that one, but it worked perfectly. It was not an issue at all, so I'm going with this approach again. Floor insulation, I couldn't be bothered. Really, at the end of the day, the majority of your benefit comes from insulating the ceiling. You get a little bit of benefit from the walls. Your floor is going to get cold no matter what, so I don't buy into insulating the floor. And then, you know, you got so many windows and, you know, heat leakage paths that going crazy with insulation is just a waste of time. One thing we lacked in previous vans and campers was somewhere convenient to store our shoes, so after staring yet again at my lounge arrangement, I decided that I would add a shoe box onto the end of it, so that as we climb in and out we can take off our shoes and store them close by the door. From an aesthetics point of view, it's probably not the best, because as soon as you open the door you're going to see a stack of shoes sitting in shelves there, but yeah, functionality wise it's going to be pretty much ideal. So you'll see how this mounts a little bit later, but my build technique for this is really using a nail gun and lots of glue to join up the 9mm plywood. I have used screws before, but that requires thicker plywood and therefore heavier wood, so I'm trying this approach. This is how caravans usually built. So there's my little shoebox made up. Unfortunately, in all the variations between vehicles and frames and my capability, I've ended up with about a 3mm gap under here. Major disaster, because that's just not good enough. So I'm going to have to cut all this frame up now and mount it a different way, make more work for me anyway. Another major event that went on for me during the week was the sale of my slide-on camper. So I've had this for the last 6 months just as a stopgap until my transit arrived, and really enjoyed having it. It's enabled me to get back out and do some camping. But found a new owner for it, and I had to deliver it over to a friend of theirs on the other side of Melbourne. So that basically took me an entire day. Then on Saturday, my welder failed, and that basically was stopping me from progressing any of the aluminium welding work, funnily enough. It still works on mild steel, but just couldn't handle aluminium anymore. So I had to bite the bullet and go and buy a new welder. That meant a lot of running backward and forward to Total Tools, which is the only shop open on a Saturday. Had to happen on a Saturday, didn't it? And then the rest of the day was spent just setting up and getting familiar with the new welder. But I think the end result's pretty good now. I've got a much better welder, and I've now actually got two welders, one for aluminium and one for steel.